Hello, everybody. It's Fraud Watch Friday. I apologize that we are a little late. We've had some technical issues this morning, so thank you for hanging in. And we are doing the Fraud of the Month, as usual, as we always do. And I'm going to bring in a couple of our great volunteers. Add the stream. And let's do it this way. Hi, everybody. We've got Kay Tomlinson and Lee Weissman. Lee is in Redmond. Kay is in Lake Tapps. Good morning. How's things going today?
Oh, we can't hear you.
Kay's on mute, or it doesn't look like you're on mute. Have we lost your audio? Huh. I don't see any reason why you would not be able to speak to us, Kay.
Can you hear me, Bruce?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Well, this is live. As we say, it's live. Is there anything on your machine, Kay, that you might be able to check? Huh. Then let me mute and unmute you. Okay, now it's muted and it won't unmute. That is very strange. Huh. Okay, well, now it's unmuted. Can
you hear me now?
Yes. All right. Well, boy, we have had gremlins this morning, like I think we've never had. So,
yeah.
So
welcome to live TV.
I appreciate your perseverance here in getting this information out. And our topic today is romance scams. It's coming up on Valentine's Day. February is kind of the month for love, so that's kind of why we picked romance scams. And Kay and Lee are going to run us through all the warning signs and what you need to protect yourself, but also what you might need to protect a loved one. That's a very common thing that we hear. People have questions not for themselves, but to help someone in their family or a friend or something of that nature. So that's our topic today. I just like to say thank you for all the comments about the hair. I appreciate the positive ones. I'm thinking about getting a haircut today, though. It's starting to drive me nuts. This is the longest it's ever been. But if everybody likes it, put your comments in the comments if you want me to keep it. So with that, let's go ahead. Kay and Lee, take it away. I'm going to drop out, and we'll put our presentation up. And
Okay, thank you, Bruce. Romance scams occur when a fraudster deceives a victim into believing that they have a trust relationship that quickly turns romantic. And they leverage that relationship to persuade the victim to send money, provide personal and financial information, or even purchase items of value for them. And victims, often send money because they believe they're now in a romantic relationship with someone that they've come to identify as their soulmate or even the love of their life. These bad actors very often use online dating sites, and they're usually posing as U.S. citizens located in a foreign country. But these fraudsters are really experts at establishing their victims' trust. They build a relationship over time based on supposed common interests, such as hobbies, animals, ethnicity, even religion or politics. In reality, these bad actors, they not only target their victims, they're actually grooming their victims over time. Now, grooming is defined as preparing a victim to be manipulated or exploited through communications that are intended to develop a trust relationship. Victims often don't realize that they've been targeted by these scammers. So when authorities ask convicted con artists to describe the trick to manipulating and scamming people out of money, they all say the same thing: get them under the ether. What? Ether is a heightened emotional state that makes it hard to think clearly and make rational decisions. The con artist is going to ask questions or share in common experiences or interests that trigger an emotional response. In this case, trust and feelings of emotional closeness, even love, as a result of grooming. Now, we know that there are factors that can make us more susceptible to falling under the ether as a victim of a romance scam or actually any fraud. Research has shown that fraud victims have typically experienced twice as many stressful life events, such as the death of a family member, loss of a job, or just feeling really lonely. And fraud victims reported significantly less family support and closeness than non-victims. These dominant risk factors create what researchers call vulnerable moments, in which targets are more susceptible to criminal tactics that focus on a person's emotional triggers. So, keep in mind that while most dating sites monitor account activity, and yes, they investigate complaints of falsified accounts, most dating site administrators do not conduct criminal background checks when an account is registered. Remember, it's always possible and easy for people to misrepresent themselves. Online sites and social media can be a great way to meet people, but recognize that not everybody online is really who they say they are. So, Lee, what are some very common red flags that people should watch out for that really should raise concerns and doubts?
Thank you, Kay. I will be happy to share that. First of all, let me talk about what is a red flag. A red flag is that little message that you get in your mind when there is some activity that you are participating in or that you witness that says, hey, wait a minute, is this right? What exactly is going on here? Don't ignore those red flags when they flash in your memory. That's really important for you to protect yourself. Most often, Kay hasn't mentioned it, but most often the perpetrators are male. But it could be a woman who is doing this, and there have been cases like that. However, I'm going to, just for the sake of convenience here, refer to the perpetrator as male. And the red flag should go up if, when you have been communicating with him on a particular chat or email or some service, that he immediately wants to move you off of that for some reason. He wants to do that because he doesn't want to be tracked. So that should be a red flag. As Kay said, if he claims to be from the United States but currently living abroad or traveling abroad, if he claims to be widowed or a service member overseas, that's to get at your emotional buttons, though you'll feel sorry for him and go along with what he is asking you to do. And be very wary if he never arranges to meet you. There can be a million reasons why. The truck broke down, he doesn't have money, whatever it is, but those reasons are really to lead up to getting your information or your money. And money, big red flag is if he asks for any kind of money or goods, or if he asks you to do any kind of financial transaction for him. And keep in mind, if he says he's having a terrible time with his computer and would you please help him get this money, and he'll deposit it into your account and then you can give it to him. If you give him your account, you are giving him access to all of your funds. So that should be a very big red flag. Excuse me here for a second. Has he been inconsistent or grandiose in his stories? And has he given you vague answers to your questions? And most frightening, I think, would be if he disappears suddenly from the site that he's been on, but he reappears on another site with a different name, but the same profile. And what should you do if you recognize any of these red flags? Stop your interaction with him immediately. And Kay, what else can we do?
Thanks, Lee. And so, as we move forward to take a look at the next slide, we understand that it's extremely difficult to admit that you've been victimized by a criminal. AARP has talked with folks that refuse to believe that they're being scammed, even after meeting the real person whose photograph the scammer claims to represent. Keep in mind that that person is a victim as well. Their photo identity, well, it's been stolen by the scammer. So what should you do if you've fallen victim to a fraudster, or if you even suspect that an attempt has been made to scam you out of your money or your personal information in a romance scam? Let's take a look at the next slide for some resources that we can share with you. Of course, we recommend that you call the AARP Fraud Watch Network call center. The number's on your screen, 1-800-908-3360, and Bruce will be posting this for us as well. You can speak with a trained volunteer who can give you information about next steps. Now, even if you're not sure you're being scammed, this is an invaluable resource. Report the activity to the FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center, your FBI field office, or both. And again, the online contact numbers are there on your screen, and Bruce will be posting those as well. I'll be posting those in the comments section for your reference too. And of course, contact your financial institution immediately and direct them to stop or reverse any transactions, any payments if they possibly can. And then ask them also, this is an important next step, ask them also to contact the corresponding financial institution where those fraudulent payments were sent. And of course, report the activity to the website where the contact was first initiated. But what can you do to help a friend or a loved one if you think they're being scammed by an online romance, even if they don't believe that they've been victimized or that they are being victimized? Well, first, and perhaps most important, don't blame or ridicule your loved one for being taken advantage of or not being smart enough to recognize the scam. We talked about being under the ether and the emotional taxing that is on you. Your loved one is likely embarrassed and angry about what's happened, and they're also grieving the loss of a deeply felt relationship, that they thought was real. They may also have to face significant life changes as a result of the fraud, such as selling a home or giving up retirement plans. You might also ask a trusted advisor to talk with your loved one, maybe a faith healer or perhaps a medical professional, someone they know and that they trust. And of course, again, contact the Fraud Watch Network at 1-800-908-3360 for additional suggestions about how you can support your loved one through this extremely emotional, difficult time. So thank you for joining us, Fraud Watch Friday. Today's focus on romance scams, and hanging in there with us this morning. You know, we've looked at what they are. Lee shared how to identify some red flags and what to do then if your loved one or you are victimized by this heartbreaking fraud. So, you know, we want to remind you, of course, that for more information about how to protect yourself from romance scams and really any type of fraud, go to aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork and look for more Fraud Watch Friday presentations on Facebook at AARP Washington. Bruce, we're going to throw it back over to you.
Well, thanks very much, Kay and Lee. That was really a great presentation. We've heard some pretty unfortunate stories of people who have been defrauded. And one of the things about romance scams is they tend to be high dollar amounts. It's not like a $40 fraud. It's, people, get hooked, and then it's more money to where it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, that's one of the things that makes this, although it's not a really common fraud, when it does happen to people, it's very devastating. And we actually have a question or a comment from David, and he points out, and this is a good point, that women and men are both the perpetrators and the victims of this. And to think it's one way or the other. I think some people think, oh, it's women who are preyed upon by sleazy men, and someone else might think exactly the opposite. But I've certainly seen examples of both. Have you heard of examples of both? Do you think men are more vulnerable, or women are more vulnerable?
My sense of things is women are more vulnerable simply because of the population, especially of aging women. There are many more of us aging women than there are men. That for my generation of women, many of us did not have an education that prepared us for some of these more sophisticated things. And so I think that puts us behind the eight ball on that. But I know that I read something in a publication about a year ago about a woman perpetrating, but I don't remember the story. But I also wanted to comment, Bruce, when you said it's not common. A while back, I did a presentation at one of our senior centers on Mercer Island, and the police were co-presenting with me. And the police person said, it was a policewoman, and she said that that's one of the highest reports that they get on Mercer Island. Is romance scams. And that was a shocker. Yes.
Well, and it's interesting, the differences between men and women victims. As it happens, my brother-in-law nearly fell victim to a romance scam from a woman that he met online, of course. And was starting to provide money and really believe that this was a real relationship. And, between his son, myself, my husband, his brother, we gave him information and some background on this scam. And again, Lee, like you talked about, those red flags. And, he stopped communicating with her, thank goodness. But again, it kind of goes back to anyone can be a victim of these crimes. And, the key to try to protect yourself, and something that AARP has really been focusing on now this year, is the 3 R's, the ability to recognize, take a breath, step back out from underneath the ether, so to speak, and think about what's happening, take steps to resist and learn what the red flags are. And then if it does happen, or you think you're being victimized by one of these romance scams, report it just as quickly as you can and tell your friends and family.
Yes. And I think it's really important to understand what you said at the end, Kay, about emotional support. It's not just a matter of you lost your wallet and the money is gone. You have invested. The individual who has been scammed has invested emotionally heavy into this. So they need support to help them heal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the other thing that we want to point out too is people think I would never be taken in by this. And sometimes it's because, well, I'm married already or I'm single and I'm not looking for anybody. So I could never be someone who would fall for this. And one of the things that we found is that a lot of times people who do become ensnared in these scams are people who've had a life event that makes them vulnerable at that moment. Perhaps their spouse has just passed away and they think, oh, this is my second chance. Or maybe they've just retired from their job and they're wondering what they're going to do with their life. And suddenly this new person comes in and provides excitement. So they're vulnerable at that moment that they might not be before or after, but somehow it just hits them at the very, very right time. So even if you think you or your loved ones or whoever would never fall for it, always be aware that maybe there's that window that you could, and it would make a lot of sense for you to have that happen. We had one of our fraud fighters who was a fraud fighter and very well versed in scams in general, but he was strung along and sent money to a woman, I believe it was in Thailand. And he spoke about it afterwards, and he gave presentations to some of our larger meetings, which we really admired him for and thanked him for. But he was thinking back on that and thinking, yeah, there were a lot of warning signs, but I really wanted it to be true.
That's right.
He was really at a moment where he really needed a lift. He really needed something good and new in his life, and that's when it hit him. But he's done a tremendous job in educating people on how someone who definitely knows how frauds work can still be taken in. So, this is just an important subject. And Lee, I was so surprised to hear you say that you had been on Mercer Island, where they had said that it was a pretty common scam there.
Right.
So it just goes to show that you don't always know.
Right.
And so David, I want to say thank you very much for your comment. And I think that just about will do it for this episode. Is there anything we haven't talked about, Lee and Kay, you want to add?
I think we've covered it at this point. Of course, as soon as we sign off, I'll think of something I would have said.
Yep. He is recognizing the red flags. So the more that you can dive in and search out, find the information, and share the information with friends and family to increase your awareness and theirs. You still have to be on alert, though.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, thing about fraud is there is never the last word. We will have probably another episode on this. Probably next February. We'll come back to it. I would mention next Friday, same time, same place, 10:30 a.m. We will have our cyber security expert Dave Morrow here, and he will answer all your questions on anything related to your email or your banking or any kind of online safety. So that's next Friday at 10:30. And if you have a question about romance scams, we'll take a stab at that as well. But then also next month in March, we'll be back with another episode of this program. And I don't remember off the top of my head what the subject is, but I'm sure it'll be fascinating, as they all are. So I will just put the FraudWatch helpline up again. That's 877-900 or 908. Sorry, that has too many zeros. 877-908-3360. And our website is arp.org/FraudWatch Network. You can find a lot of information on romance scams there too. We actually did a profile of a woman in Virginia that's profiled there, and that was a very interesting story. So with that, we will call it a wrap for this week. I'll put up the Fraud Watch Network website again and the Fraud Watch helpline where you can talk to a trained volunteer in person live about your particular questions or problems. That's a free service of Aarp, and it's a toll-free call as well. So with that, Kay and Lee, thank you again for joining us. Thank you especially to you for sticking with us through all the technical issues. Yep. This is a rough one, but sometimes the rough ones are kind of the most interesting. So that's why we do it live. And we appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.